207 days. That is precisely the number of days since the NFL last played. And if you all remember, it was the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Philadelphia Eagles as they looked for their three-peat in the Super Bowl where they were denied by the Philadelphia Eagles. It is now week one. This is what we've been waiting for. We've gone through the draft. We've gone through off-season, training camps, preseason. It is now officially week one of the NFL season, and we here cannot wait to preview what is going to happen this week. We're also going to drop a new segment called Idiot of the Week. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and this is the Snap Count Show. What is going on, everyone, and welcome to another show of the Snap Count Show, our Week 1 episode show. I am your host, Matthew Raridan, and with me today is David Street.
Hello, everyone.
Ed Smith.
Go Pack Go.
And Thaddeus Lloyd.
Hello.
Week 1 is finally here. We've all been waiting for this. I know the fans have been waiting for this. I love football, whether it's college football or NFL, but there's just something special. You know, the air is getting a little bit more crisper. That fall air is starting to creep in, depending on where you live. But here, NFL season is upon us, and I've just been waiting for this for a while. As a Steelers fan, I can't wait to see how things are going to play out. But there's a lot more storylines in the NFL happening. And there is one happening right now as we speak. The Philadelphia Eagles take on the Dallas Cowboys as our first premier matchup of the NFL season as the Eagles hang their banner. But guys, you know, we've all heard the saying, you know, when life gives you lemons, okay? I know, cliche. Well, an individual by the name of Jalen Carter, well, he gave me the whole lemonade stand here, okay? Because our segment that we are going to introduce is called the Idiot of the Week. And I think this one is very self-explanatory. For those of you guys who have not seen, I'm going to explain this, okay? It's pretty easy. Jalen Carter is our Idiot of the Week here at the Snap Count Show. And why is that? Well, not even a single snap was played if you don't count the kickoff, okay? Not a single snap was played in the very first game of the NFL season, and Jalen Carter goes up in front of an official and spits at Dak Prescott. An instant ejection. Doesn't even play a single snap of the NFL season for week 1. Guys, I mean, I don't know if it gets worse than this. I mean, to do it in front of the official before the snap is even played. David, what was Jalen Carter thinking? Why is he our Idiot of the Week?
Well, I tell you what, as a man, I would much rather you punch me in the face than you spit on me, okay? I would prefer to, not have either of those things happen to me, right? But you punch me in the face, like as men, we have a primal aggressive instinct. We might piss each other off. And, generally speaking, men can move on after physical fights, right? But spitting on someone is a genuine act of disrespect. And I don't know what Carter was thinking. Actually, Matthew, I didn't even, see that. The only reason why I knew about it was because I saw it on X. And not that I would justify it, but the closest justification I can think of is if Dak Prescott, said something insulting to Carter. But even then, that wouldn't excuse what Carter did.
No, not at all. And this isn't the first incident that Jalen Carter has done in his career. So you're going to see his whole rap sheet posted online anytime now if you haven't already. But Ed, in front of the official. I mean, I asked David the question, what was he thinking? But I don't think he was thinking. How dumb is that to do that right in front of the official?
Well, we're also talking former Georgia Bulldog, which that that school currently has a history of letting some players go and do whatever they want when they want, whether it's legal, illegal, or whatnot. And he's just following down that path at this point. As far as the act itself, this is actually more of a newer idea in the NFL. The whole disrespect, type of thing, getting that type of penalty. I'm old enough. I remember in the early '80s where if you spit on somebody, that was I got I got your ass down to the ground, and you ain't doing anything about it. I'm gonna spit on you. That was what it was. But in today's NFL, which is a lot nicer than what it used to be, then yes, this is an automatic ejection, and he doesn't need to be playing if that is the way he's going to represent the city of Philadelphia as their star defensive player.
Thaddeus. Oh, go ahead, David.
Slight pushback, Ed, but that actually is. I mean, you're you're around Dallas Cowboys fans, Ed. Like, you obviously know about the rivalry between the Eagles and the Cowboys. Like, have
Yep.
you seen that fan base from Philly? Like, I would say that Carter is representing Philly perfectly.
I've seen Philly fans in every aspect act like this, but the players on the field don't need to be acting like this toward each other. They are putting their bodies on the line. They don't need to be spitting on each other just to quote prove a point.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Sorry,
absolutely.
bud.
I agree there. And there are rivalries everywhere in the NFL. And Thaddeus, you have been in a front row seat on some of those rivalries, and this reminds me of the Richard Sherman Michael Crabtree incident. I mean, there were several incidents, but ripping the chain off. Okay, we've seen that, but is this a new level of disrespect in the NFL?
It kind of feels like it because we don't see it often nowadays, like you were alluding to, Ed. Like it's doesn't it's a lot of it's play nice now. Um, when people talk about it, it's more so about the NBA, but it does get talked about a little bit in the NFL. Um, but this was the reason it's not done a lot is because most people say it's completely uncalled for, especially this one. And Jalen Carter, what is he? Probably the best player on that Eagles defense, and you are literally spitting on the opponent's probable second best offensive player. That's just uncalled for. So I mean, the ejection was probably valid. Maybe a little bit mean, but it was definitely valid. It's just why would you do that in that situation? First thing, it just boggles my mind how someone able to do that. It could also be the fact that they actually don't have Fletcher Cox anymore. He retired after last season, and he was that veteran presence in that locker room. So maybe they're missing out on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
it's
I know. I've talked before about the closest thing to a justification is if Dak Prescott said something insulting, and you know what? I guarantee you, could be wrong, but I guarantee you that Jalen Carter is going to come out and say that, like, oh, Dak Prescott actually did insult me, right? To make him look like less of the bad guy here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's not going to be much accountability, but and another reason why a lot of this stuff doesn't happen this day and age is there's cameras everywhere. This is going to be seen multiple angles, and there's microphones everywhere too. I mean, we remember the whole Miles Garrett Mason Rudolph incident. Okay, they have a lot of technology to review stuff, but it's just a foolish act, and it is why he is our idiot of the week. I mean, the week hasn't even happened yet in the NFL, and he's already taken the crown. That's how idiotic of a move this was. I hope he learns from it because there's no place for that in football. Okay, there really isn't, and he needs to reflect on that. But I hope he comes back and eventually apologizes and go on with the season, because we don't need to see stuff like this anymore. But the fact that he did it before there was even a single snap and in front of the ref's face, it's all right. You can only go up from here, buddy. So, Jalen Carter, you are our idiot of the week. If you don't recall, the last couple of weeks we have previewed the AFC, the NFC, and how we feel that the playoffs are going to take place and our Super Bowl winners. We talked about it just last week. One thing that we have not talked about for this upcoming year is our MVP predictions. Okay, you are probably going to find out that we may have some things in common on our MVP predictions, and you may find out that we may be completely different. Once again, these are our predictions, our opinions on how we think this NFL season can go. We could be very wrong or we could be very right. Okay, that's just the name of the game as far as sports goes, even betting goes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with my MVP prediction here for the Snap Count show. I'm going to go with my MVP for this year as none other than Lamar Jackson. If you haven't heard me so far, I've talked high about the Ravens. And that has been very, very tough for me as a Steelers fan to talk great things about the Ravens. Well, Lamar Jackson, who I have, been on record before, talked, maybe not the best things about him. Well, he has proved me wrong. Okay. Lamar Jackson, he has played many times injured. He is not the biggest quarterback in the room, but he's the most athletic quarterback in the room, and I can't believe a lot of the things that he's done, and I think that he could be better. That's the thing, is that there are many tools in his games that could be tweaked, that could be better, and I feel like we're going to see that this year. I think this Baltimore Ravens team is going to be probably the most complete team in the NFL, but Lamar Jackson is going to be the person who leads it. And we all know the MVP is none other than a quarterback award, okay? Sorry, Saquon Barkley. Sorry, Derrick Henry. No matter how good years you may have and records you may get, it will always be a quarterback award. So I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson as my MVP for this upcoming year. Ed, I'm actually really curious to hear your prediction for MVP.
Well, my prediction is going to be somewhat boring, if you will, just because I think it's going to be the same old, same old. I think Josh Allen in Buffalo is going to take home the MVP award again when it gets right down to it. One of the couple reasons for that. One, to your point, Matthew, about um, Derrick Henry not getting the MVP award, I think he will get some votes, which will split votes between him and Lamar Jackson. That can, I've seen MVP awards be taken away because there's two dominant offensive players on a single team. Whereas with Josh Allen, there is absolutely no question who the guy is on that team and where they expect to go. Where I have them projected to go, all hinges on Josh Allen being the guy and being the MVP going forward for the 2025 season.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why you go that way, Ed, because none other than your very own playoff and Super Bowl predictions. But I felt the same way. I'm very conflicted between the two, just as the MVP race last year was very conflicted between the two. And that is a great point, that there can be someone that does take just a couple votes away from Lamar Jackson to essentially give it to Josh Allen. David, your prediction for MVP this year?
Right. So I'm also going to go with Lamar Jackson because to me, I picked Baltimore to go 16-1, and so it makes sense for me to pick Lamar Jackson to win his third MVP. And something that I can't help but notice is that over the years, I've noticed that there's usually two types of MVPs, right? In terms of just like so, what I mean is the first type is one whose team is just so utterly dominant and the best player was a major contributing factor, and so you give it to him. Case in point, Aaron Rodgers in 2011. Now, obviously, Aaron Rodgers, fantastic quarterback. Ed, I told you in a group chat that I think from a pure talent and skill standpoint, he's the best quarterback I've ever seen, right? But Aaron Rodgers, it wasn't like he carried that 2011 offense. I mean, you guys also had Jordy Nelson. Like, that was a stacked Green Bay offense, right? So that's an example of a team that was just so dominant, and the best player was a major contributing factor, right? But then you also have the kind of MVP where, yes, like you look, his team had a great year, but it's obvious his team had a great year primarily because of him. And you talk about Josh Allen last year, and I have another example, Cam Newton, 2015. I remember going into the 2015 season, I think everybody thought Carolina would go 7-9, maybe 8-8, because on paper their receiving core was trash or average at best, right? And Cam Newton somehow took that offense. Like, not only did they have the best offense in the league scoring wise, but they went 15-1. So, like, that's how I see it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, Cam Newton, I mean, that's such a name drop because both in college and in the NFL, where he won Heisman and MVP, he was Mr. Individual because there was nothing around him. And can you imagine what it would have been if they actually built a team around him? But Cam Newton, he was such a fun player to watch. But I agree, David, that there are two categories there for MVP, and that's essentially why Ed is choosing Josh Allen. I don't want to take your words here, Ed, so I could go ahead and toss it over to you. But that is why you chose Josh Allen, because it's going to be him that leads that team.
Absolutely. Yes, they've got a running game. Yes, they have a number one receiver entering his second year in the league. Yes, there's two one of the best pair of tight ends that's in the NFL. But who's the trigger man for all of that? It's going to be Josh Allen, because not only is he the trigger man for that offense, he's also the catalyst for half of their running game and more than half of their rushing touchdowns. So when you add those type of stats to becoming a team that will go 13-4 like they did last year, then yes, Josh Allen is absolutely going to win the MVP over Lamar Jackson, even if they have the same record. If the Ravens wind up with a record of 16-1, like you're saying, David,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be only because of Lamar Jackson. It'll be partly because of the extra pieces that the Ravens picked up in the offseason that really help solidify some of those halfway shaky things that they would run into in the regular season.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dad, who's your MVP?
I'm actually going to go with a dark horse candidate. I was thinking Joe Burrow. Because lately, someone pointed out recently that the MVP, obviously, it's a quarterback award basically now.
Yeah.
And then the second point was it kind of feels like a charity award now. It's like, 2 years ago we had, okay, Lamar, here's your first MVP or second MVP. And then it was like, okay, even though Lamar technically had a better season than Josh Allen last year, they're like, okay, Josh, here's your MVP. And so it kind of feels like if Joe Burrow basically puts up the same numbers he did last year, but the team makes the playoff, he will, highly likely win the MVP. I was thinking about that, but there's no guarantee that the Bengals will be good. Even though I predicted that they will make the playoffs, I'm still not quite sure about that defense. So I'm going to go with another dark horse candidate who's currently ranked 10th for MVP odds right now, and that is Baker Mayfield.
I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it was Baker. I left
Um,
you.
yeah.
Let him cook. Let him cook.
Let him go.
Let him
I
bake.
just,
Let him bake.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, I just think with the amount of weapons that he has, they upgraded their wide receiver 3 position. Chris Godwin's coming back about halfway through the year. They're going to have now. This actually kind of depends on how good Bucky Irving can take a full load because he's never really had a full workhorse load. But with all of his weapons, and if he's kept up the same pace he's had the past couple years, he's bound to put up a ton of numbers. Just he has to limit the turnovers. And actually, I really think he has a real shot this year to win MVP if those things happen, because they're probably going to win the division. But if they get like the second or third seed, I think he'll have a real shot at it.
Yeah, I mean, when you said Burrow, I was kind of excited because I figured we were all going to go AFC here, because my next question was going to be, and Thaddeus, you don't have to answer this because you did mention Baker, but maybe to David and Ed, is if an NFC player were to win the MVP, who would it be? Ed, any guesses there? And can Jalen Hurts be in the running?
Absolutely, Jalen Hurts can be in the running. But if Jalen Hurts is in the running, there's a higher likelihood that Saquon Barkley does get the MVP trophy. Because last year, rushing for over 2,000 yards and not getting the MVP, that is a tough blow when it comes to those that are looking to reach that milestone so they can reach that individual award. Well, just about every other 2,000-yard rusher has won the MVP, and then here comes Saquon Barkley. He does it, and it goes to Josh Allen. So if Saquon Barkley has any semblance of the year that he had last year, he would probably be my favorite in the NFC to have won the MVP over if somebody from the NFC was going to win the MVP.
Yeah, I disagree that Jalen Hurts will be in the running because he doesn't have the passing for it. Now, I'm not saying that he's a bad passer from a pure skill standpoint. I'm just saying that the passing numbers that he's produced do not warrant MVP consideration. Now, if I were to pick someone from the NFC to win MVP, I know you might think I would go with Baker Mayfield, but I'm actually going to go with Jared Goff, because, and the reason why it's very simple. I love Baker, and I think the redemption tour he's been on has been just amazing to watch. But Baker's also a gunslinger, which means that he's going to throw a lot of picks, a lot of interceptions. And for the record, it's not like he's throwing a lot of picks because he has no one else around him. No, it's very well established that Tampa Bay has one of the best all-around offenses in the league, right? So it's not like he's throwing those interceptions because he's carrying such a huge workload. No, like I said, he's just a gunslinger, so he's more prone to make those mistakes. So that's why I would pick Jared Goff over Baker if I had to pick an NFC guy to win MVP.
Thaddeus, we needed you a couple years ago when we talked about the Heisman Trophy. You talked about Joe Burrow having to make the playoffs in order to win the MVP. Well, Jaden Daniels was that exception when he won the Heisman, and we had talked about it on here. Like, all right, well, can someone win the Heisman but not make the playoffs or, have a decent record? Well, Jaden Daniels did prove that to be wrong. But Joe Burrow, though, had a phenomenal year last year, but you don't hear much about it because Bengals didn't have a great year as a team. So that is a good pick, Thaddeus, because if the Bengals have a good year, well, we already know Joe Burrow is going to be a part of that. So that is a name to keep your eye out on. But I feel confident that an AFC quarterback will win this award. So that's just kind of just how it's been shown.
Well, yeah, and especially when everyone does their top quarterback rankings, everyone knows all the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the league are all AFC, which is crazy. Which is why the AFC is like pretty much chalk, and then the NFC is just all jumbled because NFC quarterbacks are like 6 through 20.
And in my opinion, if there is going to be an NFC quarterback win it, that just comes out of nowhere, it's going to be Jaden Daniels. Matthew, you hit the nail on the head because they're a team that's on the ascent. And when you have somebody that is as dynamic a player that is in a market that is going to be shown as much as Washington is and can have those MVP type plays in crunch time, there's going to be some some groundswell to have Jaden Daniels win the MVP. But like we're saying, the AFC has the top quarterbacks. That would just be crashing the party if Jaden Daniels became part of that discussion.
Was Aaron Rodgers the last NFC guy back when he was with the Packers? Was he the last one to win MVP from the NFC side?
In the back-to-back years, 2021,
I feel like he had.
I think so because you had Lamar twice and you had Josh Daniels last year, so 22, 23, 24. So yeah,
you said Josh Daniels, Josh Allen.
I'm sorry, Josh Allen.
You were thinking of Jaden Daniels. It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the AFC tends to kind of win this award lately. So, but it'll be something to keep an eye out on. See how our predictions are going to go here, just as we talked about our predictions for Super Bowl picks. But a lot of our picks that we have for MVP, they're also we picked to be in the championship games as well as the Super Bowl. So there's kind of a trend there. Well, guys, let's now talk about Week 1. That's why we're here. Week 1 offers actually, what is there, 5 primetime games if you count the Brazil game. We're going to talk about 3 of them because the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles are taking place right now as we speak. And, well, the Bears, that's not really a primetime game. Sorry, guys, if we have any Chicago fans, just they're not primetime yet. So for us, we are going to preview the Chiefs and Chargers, the Lions and Packers, and lastly, the Ravens and Bills. David, we talked about this before the show started. This may be, if you talk about last year's numbers, this may be one of the most exciting Week 1 football matchups that we've seen in a while. I mean, just these 3 games here, a lot of us have all these teams in the playoffs. I mean, this is phenomenal here. And being a sports fan, it's not just the team, the coaches. I mean, if you look at the coaches of all 6 of these teams we're about to talk about, future Hall of Famers, okay? And that's what excites me is these coaches here. But let's talk about the first game. This is going to take place in Brazil, Friday night. Chiefs and Chargers, guys. The Chargers, they can't seem to beat the Chiefs. All right, ever since Justin Herbert was drafted, a lot of teams can't beat the Chiefs because they have ran the NFL for the last several years. But the Chargers themselves, being a division rival, have struggled to get over that mountain here. We're going to see a little bit of difference with the Chiefs because last year there were a lot of games they should not have won. And most people will argue they should not have been in the Super Bowl, okay? But they did. How are they going to look this year, though? Are they going to continue to look like the Chiefs we saw last year? Are they on the descent now because they did not look good in the Super Bowl? I think that they are. I do still think they'll make the playoffs just as I predicted. The Chargers, though, are slowly but surely on the up. And that is why I'm actually going to choose the Chargers to win this game tomorrow night against the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's because it's in Brazil, okay? I think it's because they can't beat them at Arrowhead. They can't even beat them at SoFi Stadium. Well, let's go to a different country. Maybe that will actually solve our issues. And I think it does. I think that the Chargers do hand the Chiefs a loss in Week 1 in Brazil. And this is going to be a Jim Harbaugh type of game. We're going to see, I think, a lot of running in this Week 1 matchup. I know Najee Harris got cleared to play, but he's not going to probably play a full game. But he's not the only running back they have on that team. And Jim Harbaugh sure loves to run that ball. So I think that they're going to test Chris Jones in that defensive line early on. But I got the Chargers winning this game actually pretty easily. If you're going to ask me a score prediction, I'm going to go with a wonky one here. I'm going to give me a 29-17 Chargers in this game. I just think that they need this victory early on because they do struggle against the Chiefs. So give them this early victory here. And keep in mind, Kansas City is a 3.5 point favorite as of right now. Odds are subject to change, but gives me the Chargers in this game. Ed, how do you see this week one matchup playing out?
So the teams that have given Kansas City the biggest trouble have been the teams that have been the most physical at the point of attack. And when you're talking about a Jim Harbaugh led roster, what did he say about offensive linemen? Offensive linemen are weapons. And these are the weapons that he wants to use to control the game from start to finish in the trenches, down dirty where it needs to happen. And but on the flip side, you've got Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, which is the answer to pretty much every question there is in the NFL over the past 8 years. Well, it's time for the Chargers to really stake their claim. And I have the Chargers winning this game, not just because they're more physical, but because of the attitude of one to the other. You are seeing the Chargers team buy into this physical mentality, much like we saw it take a year with the Lions, really buy into that physical, I'm going to bite your kneecaps off mentality. The Chargers are getting into that, and it has been proven that when Jim Harbaugh gets a roster that does that, he wins. Thaddeus can tell you that firsthand from the years that he was in San Francisco. Well, this is happening in LA now. Almost said San Diego. Uh, this is now happening at LA, and Justin Herbert will finally have the opportunity to show that he can lead a team and not just be the fall guy when the team collapses around him. So at this point, I've got the Chargers beating the Chiefs this week. I do have it closer than you, Matthew. I have it 27-22 in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And I think this is actually going to be a pretty entertaining game, unlike last year's game, which I thought wasn't entertaining at all after the Packers lost. But this is going to be pretty entertaining and really sets the tone for this year.
Yeah, I mean, they need to, and it could be a turning of a leaf because I think this division could be up for grabs actually in the next year, this year or next year, because of the Chiefs' descent and I think the rising of the Broncos and the Chargers. David, how are you seeing this matchup in Week 1?
So I have the Chargers winning the division, but I'm going to take the Chiefs to win this first game. And I actually have a very low scoring prediction. I'm going to take the Chiefs to win 14-13. And here's why. Okay, let me explain myself. I I think the Chargers and Chiefs are actually built very similarly, more so than people actually realize. First of all, let me just say that I am not in any way, shape, or form trying to equate um, Justin Herbert to Patrick Mahomes. I would never try to do that. But what is something that both the Chiefs and the Chargers have in common? They've got good decent weapons, but more recently they've been more defensive minded teams than offensive minded teams, right? Steve Spagnuolo is one of the great defensive minds of our time, and really one of the great defensive minds of all time, right? And then I talked about it before how even though Jim Harbaugh is not a defensive minded guy, he's an offensive minded guy. He knows how to hire defensive personnel because every single offense, or excuse me, every single defense where Jim Harbaugh was the head coach, whether it be college or the pros, has been excellent, right? And so I don't see this being a high scoring game at all. I see this being more so of a low scoring affair, and so that's why I have both teams scoring below 20.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it, and Jim Harbaugh has proven to do that as well as Spagnola. So they get their defenses into shape. But week one has always been weird, so you never really know how teams are going to do because they could still be a little rusty and trying to get into the groove of things that could either affect the defense or the offense or both. So I can understand having a low prediction like that. Thaddeus, you have had Jim Harbaugh as your coach. He's a phenomenal head coach, went to the college level and now back. We saw 1 year. How important is it to him to start this second year with a victory? And who do you have winning?
Well, I always appreciated good old Jim. He did a great job with the Niners, and then actually I had to get myself to rewatch a video today, actually, basically, telling why he was fired basically, and it was just head management. Trent Baalke was one of the worst GMs, and it just deteriorated from there. Went to college, now he's back, and the thing always with Jim Harbaugh is that always in his second year, his teams always make the playoffs, or they're at least really, really good. So I, I, in my predictions, I had the Chargers last in the division, but that doesn't mean they're going to have a bad record. I believe this team is going to have a winning record. Um, However, for Week One, I have them losing to the Chiefs. And I kind of agree with David. It is going to be a lower scoring game. Now, I'm going to be curious to see because lately people have been hyping up the Chiefs' offense. Patrick Mahomes has been on the statistical decline the past couple years, and so people are thinking that maybe they're going to return to the Tyreek Hill era of just chucking it 50 yards down the field. Um, we're going to see if that's going to be the case. They have Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy doing it. So, and then they're going to get Rashee Rice back sometime this season as well. So we're going to see about that. But for this game, um, Harbaugh is definitely going to make it close. It's going to be a trench warfare game. However, with it being a trench warfare game, that Rashawn Slater injury is really concerning. So we're going to see how much they can overcome that injury. But for now, I don't think they can. I have the Chiefs winning this in a pretty tight contest, 20-17. It's just I think that Chiefs defense still with Spagnuolo is just too good, and they'll be able to overrun that Chargers offensive line.
Well, here's the thing. If you're going to beat the Chiefs, you're going to need to actually beat them. And when I say that, what I mean when I say that is we all saw last year, if it was a close game, the Chiefs are going to win it, okay? And people will say, okay, the refs, but Patrick Mahomes has proven himself in this league that if you give him the ball with less than 2 minutes or against the Bills 35 seconds, he's going to find a way to tie the game or win the game. He has just done that time and time again. So you can't have a close game. You need to take it with out of arm's reach if you want to beat the Chiefs. And that's why I do have the Chargers winning this game because it is going to be with out of reach for the Chiefs to be able to actually get back in and win this game or tie it up. That's the only way you're going to be able to do it. As far as that, Slater injury goes, that is huge. That is huge, especially on a Jim Harbaugh team. They did bring in Becton from the Eagles this offseason to help that offensive line. That's a typical Jim Harbaugh type of move there, within the trenches. But that Slater injury is tough for the Chargers. But I do think they find a way to overcome it, though.
And Matthew, to kind of add to your point, is it any coincidence that the only Super Bowl losses for the Chiefs in the Patrick Mahomes Andy Reid era were both blowouts to the Bucks and the Eagles?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about film. It's all about really studying your opponent. I'm not saying that the other teams haven't, but they were able to figure out Mahomes. They were able to figure out that defense, and they exploited it. We saw it picture perfect with the Bucks and with the Eagles last year. And yes, they made it to where they could not catch up at all. And so it looked like a varsity versus JV type game, both those games. So great point, David. Um, Well, on to the second game here, and I know our very own Ed Smith is going to be very highly invested in this game. But if you're an NFL fan, you're also going to be invested in this game because this could possibly be one of three matchups with these teams. And that I'm talking about the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers here. I know our very own Ed has this as one of three matchups. And I could see it. I could see it. Green Bay is a 1.5 point favorite right now. Uh, this game is taking place at Lambeau, and these are two of the top NFC teams here. If you've been sleeping under a rock the last week, you may have missed Micah Parsons being traded to the Green Bay Packers. That helps bolster their defense, but Green Bay Packers were already a great team before Micah Parsons even was traded there. This
I
just
could,
helps them even more.
I could when Micah got traded to the Packers, like I could hear Ed's enthusiastic yell from all the way here in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been an earthquake, but it wasn't. It was just Ed cheering and every Green Bay Packers fan cheering because Michael Parsons is one of the top defensive players in the league who is still within his playing prime. Okay, has maybe not even hit it yet, and a lot of potential there. Like I said before, Green Bay was already a great team. I feel like, and this helped them out even more on the defensive side. But the Lions and Packers have continuously gone at it here in this division, and Dan Campbell has really, orchestrated something great up in Detroit. And there's not a lot of great things in Detroit, but the Lions right now are one of them, and the Tigers are too. Maybe it's the sports franchises; they're changing it around, but Dan Campbell, great coach, phenomenal. He has really done great things here in Detroit with the Lions. But Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, Ed, uh, he, he needs just one more thing to get Green Bay to that next level for a Super Bowl appearance and a Super Bowl win. Is getting Micah Parsons that move.
It's one of the best moves that he could have made for that roster because Green Bay is an organization that the head coach, he doesn't necessarily have like the absolute say of who comes and goes like a lot of teams. Matt LaFleur is going to play whoever he gets, and credit credit the front office of Green Bay to work the deal to get Micah Parsons on that roster because Matt LaFleur's got him. He's going to play him, and that's simple as that. What I am curious to see, though, going into this game specifically, is how well is Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary going to match up against the tackles for Detroit, Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell? Those are going to be some heavyweight matchups on the edges, both sides, while Green Bay's on defense, Detroit's on offense. What becomes more important, though, in my opinion, is how's the interior of that offensive line for the Lions going to hold up against the interior of the defensive line and the linebackers for Green Bay? Because I think it's almost a stalemate with those outside rushers and the tackles. It's almost a stalemate there, in my opinion. Yes, Detroit's going to have to find some creative ways to create some chips, some movement, some ways to get Jared Goff out of the way. But that interior, it's brand new for Detroit. The interior for the Packers has been there. So they have been in that system for a year now, and they know what to look for and how to exploit the interior linemen of the team in front of them, this week being the Lions. So that's something I'm looking at. I'm also looking at on the flip side with Detroit's defensive line against the Packers' offensive line. With Aiden Hutchinson coming back, who was on pace for probably 25 sacks last year before he got injured, which was horrific to watch. For those that like Broken Bones, go back and watch that one. When you see Aiden Hutchinson, I think he has an advantage over the tackles of the Packers, Zach Tom and Aaron Banks. So Jordan Love's going to have to find ways to get the ball out quickly. Luckily, LaFleur's offense is designed to get the ball in the hands of the playmakers first and then go from there. Add that to the running game of Josh Jacobs hitting the interior portion of the line. This is so close to call, but in the end, for this week, I think the Lions actually come through and win just by a hair at 23-21, just because there's just that much more running game for Detroit. That true number one receiver that we know is number one receiver for the Lions and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then you've got the tight end that is a true number one tight end for the Lions. It all comes together. Just it's by that much, but I've got the Lions winning 23-21, and it really pains me to say that.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's pained me a lot to talk about good things about the Ravens. Thaddeus, if you take the quarterbacks away, if you can't choose one of them, who's going to be the X factor in this game? Is it going to be a defensive player such as Aiden Hutchinson or Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Jacobs? Who would you put as an X factor in this game?
That is a good question because both these quarterbacks are instrumental to each of these offenses. So I probably would go with the running backs. Josh Jacobs has been one of my favorite players in the league since he's been in the league, basically, and he's actually pretty important as well to that Green Bay offense. So if Jacobs can probably get over 100 yards this game, they are probably going to win this game. Personally, I think now this might be me going off of last year, and the Lions' defense was hurt pretty bad last year, so they were giving up a lot of points. But I also think this game is going to be really high scoring. In Green Bay, it's warm-ish weather even over there right now, so I expect the Packers to put up a lot of points and the Lions to also put up a lot of points. I'm going to have the Packers winning this one, though, 42-35. Really high scoring game. I just really think both offenses are machines. I know the Packers, you improve that defense. Jeff Hafley is a good coordinator, fix that defense right up. However, I have questions with the Lions' new offensive and defensive coordinator. It remains to be seen. So I'm going to take consistency over, new hires for this one. And I just really think that having that consistency, and I'm really excited to see Matthew Golden as well. Is he going to be their actual true number one receiver? There you go. So yeah, I'm really excited for this game, but I truly think this might be a really high scoring one. So, but I got the Packers in this one.
All right, David. I mean, the reports that we've seen are, Micah Parsons, of course, is going to be playing in this game. Do you see him playing a full game, and how big of an impact is he going to have immediately?
So I think he'll probably play limited minutes because I think Green Bay will want to save him for January and February and not waste not waste anything risky on him early yet. But something about this game that really fascinates me are the storylines. And what I mean by that is that on one hand, you got one team who's become the new kings of the NFC North. That's the Lions, right? But then you have the other team who wants to get their crown back, right? Now, people may recall, for the 2010s up to the early 2020s, the Green Bay Packers, as Ed would know, owned this division, right? There was like a few times where Green Bay did not win it, but from the 2010s up to the early 2020s, this was Green Bay's division, right? And with the move to get Micah Parsons, they're telling us, yes, we want to win the Super Bowl. That is our end goal. but we also are to take what's ours, and that is the NFC North crown. Now, as for my prediction for this game, I mean this is definitely a major hot take. I know it's very unpopular to predict blowouts, but that's exactly what I'm going to do because I'm going to take Green Bay to beat the Lions 41-18. Listen, it's gonna, they have a newfound energy with Micah Parsons. It's going to be in front of that rambunctious Lambeau crowd, right? So I think the Packers are going to jump on early. So I have them beating the Lions by quite a lot.
Yeah, David, you talk about storylines, and Thaddeus talked about it briefly. I mean, Detroit's coming in with two different coordinators. We don't know how Jared Goff is going to be without Ben Johnson, okay? And things are going to be different, but I mean, he has had a whole training camp to go over these things, and it may be kind of contradicting on how I'm going to choose this game, but we don't know how it's going to look. But I know Jared Goff, I know Sam Laporta, I know Amon-Ra St. Brown. No matter who their coordinators are, those guys can ball. So for me in this game, it is a rivalry game, and it is taking place in Lambeau. I'm pretty much actually the same here as Ed, as tough as it may be, is I got Detroit winning this one 24-22. So mine and Ed's predictions are low compared to David and Thaddeus's, but I think it ends up still being close. Why? Because they are division rivals. They're going to give each other a great matchup. But the big storyline here is how are things going to be with new coordinators at the helm in Detroit? So we're going to find out come Sunday.
And then one last note I had, and why I think the Packers at least win a couple games in the beginning of the year, is because last year they won 11 games, 12 games last year, and they went 1-5 in the division. So they are gonna make sure that doesn't happen again. I would think so.
Hopefully they make that adjustment. Can't be losing that much in the division. Well, Thaddeus, since you were just talking, I'm actually going to bring this next game over to you first. We have the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills Sunday night football. Okay, it doesn't get better than this. Baltimore is a 1.5-point favorite as of right now. I'm asking you straight up here, Thaddeus. Is this the AFC Championship game taking place in Week 1?
I, I'm actually thinking so as well. This is obviously it's the beginning of the season, but it's definitely a very high possibility. I would say more than 50% chance this might be the AFC Championship. This is going to be a fantastic game. We got a bunch of people coming over. We're going to watch this thing. Probably the best game of the slate, if we're being honest, for week 1, because what happened last year's playoff Bills versus Ravens in the divisional was really truly something special. Now the Bills and the Ravens, not the Ravens as much, but definitely the Bills at least, and the playoffs are super entertaining. Like some of the most fun things to watch because Josh Allen is an incredible quarterback. He's by most accounts the second best quarterback in the league right now. And he's just a pleasure to watch. Most people would put Lamar at 3, so we got 2 of the top 3 quarterbacks playing in one game, and it's always fun just to see these two teams because they're both well run. They both have great head coaches who do great things on their side of the ball. Really top rosters, probably top 5, top 10 rosters in the league. And it just makes it for a really exciting product, I think. So this is probably going to be another classic, a regular season classic. It'll probably come down to the wire, just like it did in the playoff game, because both these offenses, both these quarterbacks, both these running backs are phenomenal. You got the so far ageless wonder Derrick Henry still running. People didn't think he was going to do that year. I thought he was going to do that year. It paid off for me in fantasy last year. And now everyone's like, oh, okay, maybe this guy doesn't age. So now his stock's back up, unfortunately for me. But side note on that, Derrick Henry has not stopped. James Cook got his bag. He looks to be doing well as well. Because Josh Allen with a running game was really great last year. So it's I cannot wait for this game. As far as a score prediction goes, I'm going to take the Bills in this one. I'm going to go 28-27. So I'm going to flip that on the Vegas odds there and have the Bills by one. But either way, you really can't go wrong with this game.
Yeah, David, question that I wanted to ask here for you is, does the winner of this game lose if they face each other in the playoffs? And who do you have winning?
Ooh, actually, I'm going to say yes because you who did I have? Who did I have winning the AFC? It was the Bills, right?
Huh?
But the Packers over the Bills, which means that obviously I'm going to take the Ravens to win this game. And by the way, and I'll get to my score prediction in just a minute. But speaking of storylines, we have a great storyline in this game. In fact, I believe it's the first time in NFL history, or if not the first time, a very, very rare moment where the two teams with the number one and number two guy for MVP as far as voting goes, it's the first time or a rare instance where those two teams actually face off against each other in the first game, because Josh Allen was MVP and Lamar Jackson, I think, came in second place. So that's definitely something cool to witness, right? But as far as the game goes, I'm gonna take the Ravens by a score of 30-17, but it's not going to be a blowout 30-17 kind of game. I think it'll be a very close game. I think Baltimore heading into the third quarter will be up by 23-17. But by that point, the Bills defense will be worn out, and Derrick Henry will score a last second touchdown to make the game look more out of hand. So that's what I've got.
All right. Ed, we talked about week one matchups, and this is very entertaining, these three games that we talked about. But let's take a rewind really quick to last year, where week one was the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. And that game came down to the wire. And it was a reviewed touchdown that got called back that ended the game for Baltimore. Do you see this game being the same level of excitement in week one?
Actually, I don't. I think this is going to be a game that, while it has all the makings of being one of the most exciting games we see of the week, one of the most watched games we see of the week, one of the most entertaining games that we've ever seen, 1 and 2 MVP from last year facing off and everything, we've got to. I want to keep in mind that this is week one, and with the current preseason schedule, these teams' offenses don't know diddly squat. The defense is always going to be ahead of the offense. That's why on the other two games, I think it was pretty high scoring, saying that there's going to be teams in the 20s, because in this first week, the defense is always ahead of the offense, just like you see in college, just like you see every year in the NFL. That first couple of weeks, until the offense can actually play together for a full game, they will not have it figured out just yet. So, with the extra pieces that Baltimore has picked up in the offseason to bolster the defense, including Jair Alexander being able to roam free and let them play nickel coverage in the back while dedicating their entire front seven to stopping Josh Allen and James Cook, I think Baltimore wins this game, and I think they win it convincingly, but not overly so on the scoreboard. I think this game is going to wind up being 17-9, and that's it's not. It's going to stay pretty close to the end of the third quarter, but in that fourth quarter, just like you were saying before, I think there's going to be a rushing touchdown done by either Lamar Jackson or Derrick Henry that puts the game away, and it's going to be a game where it's going to be intense, but it is not going to be one of these high flying, high scoring, super exciting, an hour's worth of highlight reel material. This is going to be a well fought game. It's not going to be a super dynamic game.
I get what you're saying there. I do agree to a point. Um, my score prediction may look like it's going to be a close, exciting game, but I'm in agreement actually with several of you that I do think that a late touchdown makes it look a little bit closer than it is. I do have the Ravens winning 32-28. I want to stick to my guns here though, because I said it on here before that Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens are a regular season team. They haven't proved a whole lot in the postseason that they could be both. So that's why I have Baltimore winning this game. But I think one of the underlying factors here that needs to be talked about is James Cook. We've mentioned his name, but he wasn't a part of all their team activities and drills as he was in hopes of getting a new contract. So I do think that has proven before to add a little bit more rust to a player as they need to be up to date on everything that the offense is going with. And week one, the offenses usually aren't there just yet, so that's going to hold them back, I feel like, a little bit more. But James Cook is a great running back, and I know he'll catch on by the second half. And I think that he scores a touchdown later in the game to bring it to 28 for Buffalo. But I'm going to go with Baltimore here, 32-28. I know that is a little high there, but I think Baltimore has shown that in the regular season they tend to always score. They always find ways. So, but. I'm just going to say now that I do feel like this is going to be a rematch in the playoffs, and I do have this as a rematch in the AFC Championship game, but I think it is going to be safe to say that these two teams will meet again later this year. We're just fortunate enough to see them in week one. We're fortunate enough to see all three of these games that we just talked about in week one, as the NFL has done great on their matchmaking. But before we end this show, really quick headlines here. Mari Cooper calling it quits after his NFL career. Didn't really see this fully coming. He rejoined the Raiders, saw how Pete Carroll runs the team, and he's like, I'm going to quit again. So he made that happen. Ed, what other headlines have we seen, pop up?
Well, one of the headlines that we've seen come across is Nick Bonito. He has gotten his 4-year extension with the Broncos for 120 million, and it's well deserved. He is quickly becoming a stalwart of that defense on the outside, and they've got somebody that they can build around as they try and make the AFC West more competitive, which we all think it will be. He's going to be a key component of being able to do that on the defensive side.
Yeah, no, I fully agree there. So those are just a couple of headlines that have taken place here this last week heading into week one. And the Mari Cooper one being a big one because, he had a great NFL career, just didn't see that retirement coming fully yet. But that's about all we have today, folks. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Please continue to tune in. Please hit that like, subscribe button, and also comment on these videos. Let us know how you think things are going to go. Let us know your week one predictions and things we need to look out for. If you have an idiot of the week that you would like to nominate, feel free to do so. But I do think that Jalen Carter continues to take that prize here in week one. But let us know your idiots of the week, and we will definitely be considering them. But until next time, guys, that is the final whistle. We'll catch you next week.